Good morning once again. So let's start with the webinar today. The topic for the day is fast tracking with SwiftKanban. My name is Sudipta Lahiri and I head the products at Digite. A quick look at the agenda first. I'll quickly introduce the company and myself, and then we'll shift to the actual agenda for the day. Some of these topics would have been shared with you as part of the webinar invite, and we'll try and stick to that agenda. We will cover the first 4 topics in a fair amount of detail. In terms of the last bullet, which is protecting the current investments by syncing with popular tools, we'll go through a we'll go through a quick overview, but we will not get into a high level of detail today. If required, we will schedule a separate webinar for that on another day. Assumptions, we have assumed that that the people on the call today have some level of familiarity with the SwiftKanban tool. So we will expect a basic level of understanding of how the SwiftKanban tool operates, and try to talk a little more detail about some of the in-depth functionality that the SwiftKanban tool provides. The webinar will be recorded and we'll make this available after the webinar. Please do share your questions in the Q&A box that will be available in the GoToMeeting panel. My colleague Nishant will keep a track of them, and he'll try to collate them as they come along, so that similar questions we can try and address them at the same time. All the Q&A, all the questions will be taken up at the end of the webinar. A quick introduction to Digite. We are a web-based collaborative product solutions for geographically distributed teams. That's our core expertise. We are based in the US. Across our products, we have over 700,000 licensed users, so that's a pretty established community of licensed users that we have. Our products cover lean, Kanban, agile development, ALM, project portfolio management, and SwiftKanban that we're going to talk about for the rest of the webinar today is our flagship lean Kanban product. So we will talk about that for today. My name is Sudipta. I've been in the industry for over 2.5 decades now. I am a lean agile practitioner myself. I led the development of the SwiftKanban and the Swift ALM products. I used to head our engineering services earlier at Digite, and I look after our product management function today. So with that quick quick introduction, let me go to the actual webinar. And for the webinar, I'm going to use multiple projects in multiple different environments, because it's very hard to build one project which uses every feature functionality that we would like to demonstrate. So we would use real life projects that we use day in, day out ourselves to be able to highlight and bring out some of the feature functionality that we are sharing with you today. So the first, so whenever you log into the project, you actually log into your board, and this is how our SwiftKanban development board looks like. You see all the different lanes, and any of these lanes can be expanded, collapsed, depending upon whatever is your level of usability and detail that you are seeking for. We do have multiple levels of zoom and detail available, so you can collapse and you can see an aggregated view, consolidated view at any point of time. So I'll stick to the expanded view, and with that I'll move to the actual topic that I wanted to cover in terms of how do you go about configuring your value stream, setting up your board, configuring your value stream. And the first step to do that is to go to your board editor. So in the board editor, what you see here are a bunch of swim lanes. Each of these horizontals are called swim lanes. So we have multiple swim lanes in our example. We have accepted SwiftKanban development, SwiftSync development, SwiftSync customer engagement, and SwiftKanban other development activities. each of these swim lanes could have their own value stream, and that's one of the most common reasons why organizations do build different swim lanes within one board. You could split your work across multiple boards, or you could have them all on one board. The simple criteria that I use is that if you need common transparency across your team, it would be great to have them on one board. If you need restricted access, so that let's say you have an outsourced team that is doing some part of your work, then you can have them on a separate board and keep the rest of the team on a different board. So swim lanes help you map different value streams. You can create swim lanes pretty much by just clicking on the add button right there, and you can go ahead and click whatever swim lanes you want to add here. And you can give WIP limits for at the swim lane level. So if you give WIP limits at the swim lane level, you're essentially building like a con-WIP model where the entire swim lane, entire value stream has a constant WIP. The lane can be a default type or a portfolio type. I'll talk more about portfolio lanes later, so just hold your thought there. We also have something called as a card type, and what the card type helps you do is you can actually do a quick add, and I'll show you the quick add the next time we go to the board. So the quick add helps you create cards in a jiffy without selecting too many attributes, too many fields, doing anything. And what you're doing here is selecting a default card type that might be applicable for your quick adds. So that's what you're trying to do here. And if I just go ahead and set this, and you would just see that I have gone ahead and created another swim lane called temp. And once you've created a swim lane, you can very easily drag drop it here to be able to change the change its order across your lanes. And at any point of time, of course, you can go ahead and copy it. You can go ahead and delete it. You can move it up, down. So since this is my real board, I'm going to delete the swim lane that I just created. Once you've created your swim lane, the next step would be to define the different columns which are part of your swim lane. So you see an example here in a very simple form. Let's say you see a develop within SwiftKanban, other development activities. You see in progress, done, validate, approve. You can have more sophisticated, you can break it up further, where you can see here ready for development, design, coding, functional units, review, and so on and so forth. And you can build build very sophisticated boards. So I'll show you another example of my own personal board and my own personal Kanban board. And you see an example here where we have split the lane into multiple horizontal lanes, multiple vertical lanes, done all kinds of things. Now, to be able to create something like this, it's a fairly simple activity. What you need to do is to just go ahead and click on any of these settings here, and you can just split it vertically. And if you've created this, if you want to split it horizontally, once you want to split it vertically, you can split it vertically like this. If you want to add a lane to the right of this, you can add a lane to the right or to the left, any of the sides. You can just go ahead and add a lane. So you would go ahead and add a lane here in this fashion. So in other words, you can do all kinds of things. I will just I'll just ignore these changes and go back, since this is the real board of our development team. But in this fashion, you can create pretty sophisticated boards like the examples that I've shown here. A note of caution, it's obviously from a tool perspective, it is very easy to create splits, horizontal, vertical, whichever way you want. But if you are interested in doing a lot of cumulative flow diagram based analysis later, cycle time analysis later, or more than cycle time, cumulative flow diagram analysis later, then I would recommend you not to have horizontal lanes which have been split like this, because what has happened in what you can see in example here is, in effect, I have two value streams working within one swim lane. So I have one value stream which is for my official work related cards, and I have another value stream which is for my personal cards here. So I have two value streams which are actually modeled on one swim lane, and if you're familiar with how cumulative flow diagrams work, which are essentially stacked charts, then that logic doesn't apply correctly when you plot a cumulative flow diagram for something like this. So I just wanted to leave that note of caution when you're building and mapping your value streams to avoid creating parallel value streams within the same swim lane. So with that thought, I'll move ahead. Those were the couple of things that I wanted to share with you here as far as building and configuring your own value stream is concerned. One other thing that you might want to think about when you're doing is to select your card types. And you can actually create your card types from the enterprise. Within the enterprise, there are a whole bunch of card types available. You can select the ones which are applicable for you. You can choose the colors that you want to give to them. And interestingly, you can also predefine a list of to-dos or tasks that are applicable for that card type. So for example, you can say that if I am going to get a customer defect, go ahead and create a card type, the first card type, which is an analysis defect analysis. And you could just go ahead and create a sequence of these kind of tasks so that people could know a set of steps how they're supposed to go through when they get the card type on the name. So I will ignore this at this point of time. So in effect, whenever you're starting a new board, you go to the board editor, you define your swim lanes, you define the columns in your swim lanes, and you define the card types that are going to be applicable for you to get started. And that's pretty much it. That should help you to get started with your board. So I'll move to the next topic, and we wanted to talk a little bit about how to design these cards itself. What are the different capabilities and fair amount of flexibility that you have in being able to define these cards and cards and their attributes, and also we'll talk a little bit about master lists. So let me go there and start there. So the first thing that you can do is to look at it at your project level. So if you're looking at it at a project level, as I said, you can go ahead and define all the different card types. One of the things that you can do here in addition is the card designer. The card designer is a very flexible way for you at a project level to be able to select and decide what attributes are meaningful for you for the card types on your board, and in what order you want those card attributes to be shown. And if something doesn't make sense, you can actually hide it and completely disable it to be seen from your card itself. The other thing you can configure is whether on the board, when you see the card, you see a single row here or you see a two-level row here. So depending upon the number of attributes that you want to see here, you can go ahead and select the number of attributes that you're seeing on the card itself without opening the card detail. So what I'm referring to here is, if you see here in our example in our own SwiftKanban development, you are able to see two-level card details here, card attribute details here, when I am actually at the highest level of zoom. Okay, and you can see all the remaining cards by just clicking on this. In any case, all the cards are always going to be available to you when you open the card and see all the details. So you will be able to see all the cards anyway here. But at this board level itself, you can configure which attributes are meaningful for you, important for you, and you want to see them. So having covered the card designer, let me move to a little more a higher level of configurability that you have with related to cards. So at the enterprise level, you can do a lot of things. You can first start by creating your own card types. So you see a whole bunch of card types that are available out of the box. Of course, some of these that you see in this example right now would not be available out of the box because we have created them specifically for our own requirement. But there are a lot of card types that would be available to you when you started in enterprise. But if for some reason you want to create an additional card type, you can obviously go to any card. You can just create here, and you can go and create a test card type here, and choose whatever color you want it to be, and you're done with that. But once you've selected a card type, the next step would be to actually create it attributes. So I'll take an example, and I'll take an example of any of these. Let's say, for example, I'll take something which is a little more relevant perhaps to today, is our customer defect card type. So customer defect card type, which we in our own work distinguish from internal file defects. And you can now have full configurability to define all the attributes that you need or want. So what you see here are a list of attributes, what type of attribute they are, whether they're read-only, mandatory, disabled, whether they are a static list, which means a master list, or they're a manual entry field. And if you are actually seeing them in a list view, in a table, list view, grid view, where do you want to see them in the order? So each of these is fully configurable. You can go ahead and add an attribute at any point of time by just clicking on the add button and filling all the relevant fields. I will skip that part, but what I wanted you to be aware is that you can go ahead and create your own card types. You can create your own custom attributes. However, when you create a custom attributes can be created at the card level, or more interestingly, you can create what we call as common custom attributes. Now, the key difference between common custom attributes and custom attributes at card level is that if you want to do analysis on that attribute, for example, you want to do filters, queries, things like that, then it is important to make it a common custom attribute, which would then apply across all your card types, and you would then be able to use it in your filters and queries and different metrics across the system. However, if you want to actually just build a custom attribute for just taking a comment in a particular card type, or some text field, or something that is very specific to that field, that card type, and not going to be applicable to other card types, then it would be more relevant to have them as custom attributes at the card type level. So I wanted you to be able to be aware that you can create custom attributes which are specific to one card type, or which are applicable to all your card types. Similar to the card types, similar to the card designer which I showed you at the project level, you can also have card designer at the enterprise level. So you can have an enterprise level setting which would then be overwritten by the project level setting if somebody at the project level chooses to look and feel it differently, look and have a different behavior pattern at the project level. So that covers the fact how you could go ahead and create your own custom card types, attributes, whether they're custom to a card type or common attributes. The next thing that I wanted to highlight here was master lists. Master lists are a very easy way to go ahead and create various kind of drop-down values, and you can go ahead and build your own master list. You can add the values that you want that master list to particularly see, and as you can see here, we also give you the ability to rank order them in terms of in what order would you like to see these master list values. So it's completely flexible and at your control how you want to see any of these master list values. Once you've defined a master list, if you would have noticed, you can create a field type which is linked to a static master list. So I can say, once I've created a risk code as a master list, I can now go to a customer defect and create an attribute called risk codes and just link it from the drop down to the risk code master list. So it helps me to actually just go ahead and be able to do that very quickly. So I could, in other words, just to kind of highlight it again, I could just go here, I could go to fields, and I could just go ahead and add a field here, call it risk, and in my field type say that this is oh, in this example it doesn't apply, but if I were to choose that method, then it would be I would get an option to be able to create it as a static master list, like you see here as a static list. So I can create a single line text and then go ahead and create here as a static list, and then from this list I can go ahead and select the risk codes, and I'm pretty much set. So you can create master lists and pull them up in your different card types as and when you need them. The one other capability which is very useful and I wanted to highlight is creating templates. So once you've created a fairly functional established project, people are using the project, what you can do is you can create that as save that as a template and use that again and again for instantiating new projects. You don't need to every time go through the complete process of value stream definition, defining the card types, attributes from scratch. Once you've defined it and saved it as a template, you could do that. And the easiest way to do it is you would go ahead and go to the project list. So you see all your projects here, and you select any project, and once you select a project, you can actually go ahead and save this as a template, and you can just click on it, template, you give it a name, and you'll be able to save it as a template. Once you saved it as a template, the next time you want to create a board, you can just link it, pull it to link it to this template, and you will get the complete value stream and all the configuration settings that you had applied. So with that, let me move, that completes what I wanted to cover in this part of the topic. Let me move to the next one, which is talking about building card linkages and hierarchies. So to do that, I'm going to again go back to my board, and the first thing that you need to do about when you want to build hierarchies is to be able to define what are the legitimate hierarchies relationships that you want to allow at the enterprise level. So in here, you can actually go ahead and define all the different hierarchies that you want to apply. So I'll take theme as an example. And you can see that we have created a theme which has some project card types, some parent card types and some child card types. And I can go to the stories, and you can see your stories have been created to many other child card types, both as parent as children. So it enables you to be able to create a list of valid relationships that are relevant for you, and so that you don't land up creating in projects linkages which really don't make any sense, which are fundamentally not valid. Once you have created the master list of valid linkages, now you're pretty much ready to use it. And I'm going to go to our roadmap planning board. And in our roadmap planning board, I can go to any of my cards here. So I'll pick up this card here, which is called performance tuning, and I will go to its link cards. And when I go to its link cards, I see the complete hierarchy of cards which are part of this card. So I can, now that I can see the full cards, I get a sense about how many cards are there in its children. I can now go ahead and add more cards. I can go ahead, so I can add more cards. Like here, I can go and add more cards. And this tool allows you to add cards into other boards also. So you could have a situation where you have a portfolio board at one level, and then you have child level boards, which are the execution boards by different teams, and you're creating cards from the parent level board and giving it to the child level boards for execution. So if I just create a board like this, and I then go and set a backlog, and I can say this is a test card. If I just press enter now, it will in effect create a card which is inside my SwiftKanban roadmap planning board, or I can pick up any other board. Let's say, for example, I create SwiftKanban development board, and it goes and creates there a test board, a test card of a card enhancement type. So I'll create this, let's say, a story, and if I do this, it will go ahead and create a test user story card inside my SwiftKanban development project. So what we did is fairly sophisticated in terms of being able to do portfolio Kanban, because now you're able to create a hierarchy of boards, see the work distribution as you defined it, and see in which board where work is happening. You can do all this right away on the board itself. So for example, if I want to create, if I am looking at my theme card here, I could go ahead and look at, for example, let's say I'll just take this, and let me just go right on the board itself. I can go ahead and say add children, and when I click on add children on the board, it actually allows me to see what are all the cards which are not already linked and not already linked to another card, and from the remaining cards I can now just select a bunch of cards which I want to actually link to this particular theme that I have. So I can create in this fashion a hierarchy of cards within my current board itself, or I could create, as I showed in the previous instance from my link card page, a full hierarchy and keep distributing that to all my different boards, different or within the same board, different lanes. So I think that's what I wanted to kind of cover in the linkages section. You can do like that. You can, for example, you can go to that original view that I showed you some time back. You can go to that view right from here in this example and see the entire, all the details. You also have the ability to be able to go ahead and add a parent. I showed you the example of adding child, but you can just go ahead and add a parent and do the same process. So with that, I think we've pretty much covered how you can build a full chain of hierarchy across different card types and cards of different types across different boards, if that is your functional need. What we'll move next to is to tracking portfolios. Portfolios are a pretty unique and a very powerful capability, and I think pretty much in the market we are the only ones to have this capability. What you see here in this example right here in product themes is an example of a portfolio lane. A portfolio lane helps you get a feel about the percent progress of any card depending upon multiple things. So if I go to my board settings and I define a portfolio lane here, if you remember, I had parked this discussion for later when we had talked about this earlier in the board configuration. If I define a portfolio lane, then you can actually choose whether you want the percent progress on the card to be updated based on the percent progress of the child cards, or the percent progress of the to-dos, the tasks inside that card, or you want it to be manually entered. I would always recommend that you use the hierarchy method because because hierarchy method is the most accurate method of saying that how many, if out of 10 cards only 2 cards are done, then you're effectively saying 20% is completed, and the card will show in the 20% corresponding to the 20% bar there. The nice thing about this capability is that you are able to, there is no subjectivity here. So unlike a Microsoft project where somebody would have said, you know, that I am subjectively 90% complete or 80% complete, and then the 90-10 syndrome applies. Here, because you're going based just on the basis of card completion, there is no ambiguity. Once a card is done, it is done, and you are able to see the exact progress. So you are able to, you can actually go to any of these cards and see here the full detail of, sorry, I clicked on the wrong place. Let me go back there. you are able to see the full detail of all the cards, all the child cards, and where these cards are in their life cycle. So I can see that this particular theme has 2 user stories, 3 enhancements, and these enhancements are in, one of them is in SwiftKanban development project, 2 of them are in the roadmap. So you can see here's an example of the cards being distributed across different boards. Some of them have been completed, some of them have not yet been started. So it's a very good way, visually powerful way of giving a view to your management to say how many parallel themes that we are working on, what is the real % progress, and what is really left to be done at any point of time. In any board, you can have multiple portfolio lanes. There's no restriction that you only need to have one portfolio lane. But yes, the portfolio lane has only one extended in progress column where we map the 0 to 100% of the cards % progress. So that, I think, pretty much sums up the capability, the portfolio capability of the tool. And I wanted to move over to actually talking about reporting and analytics. So there are a lot of things to be covered, that one can talk about in terms of reporting and analytics. And I'll start one by one and see how far we can complete given the time available. But I hope to give you a flavor of multiple things, there are multiple management functions that you can actually do from the tool itself at a fair, with relative ease. So I'm going to go to one of my implementation projects, and I'm going to pick up and pick up the cumulative flow diagram for this project. So when you actually click on the analytics page, you actually land up to a whole number of widgets that you have the ability to configure at any point of time. There's a complete list of widgets that you can configure here. So you can choose and configure what are the widgets that make relevant sense for you. You can see flow efficiency, throughput, cycle time average distribution. You can see control charts. You can see tag charts. So there's a fair amount of all the regular Kanban metrics that are that you can actually use at any point of time. So let's talk about the cumulative flow diagram. The cumulative flow diagram, and I'm not going to cover the cumulative flow diagram. I think pretty much everybody understands within the audience how to interpret a cumulative flow diagram. But what I wanted to highlight is that we have the ability to do predictive analytics based on your cumulative flow diagram. So what you are able to see here right now is that based on my current throughput so far, I'm going to finish this project on a certain date, which is in September 2017, because I've plotted this on a monthly basis. And so I'm going to finish this in September 2017, and my required and my throughput for that is, my current throughput is about 51.5 cards on any given month. If I were to actually go to the filter and change this to say, instead of September, if I want to finish this by June, what is my throughput going to, what is my desired throughput going to needed, then it will, just give me a minute for the screen to refresh. So it will go ahead and tell me that while my current throughput is 48.25 cards, but if I need to finish this by June 30th, the remaining backlog, the rest of the backlog, has to be completed at about 144 cards per month to be able to finish this project by June 30th. So it helps you get a sense that what your current throughput is. Based on the current throughput, what is the predicted date of completion of this throughput? And if this is the predicted date of completion, if you need to advance it or delay it, at what rate does your throughput change so that you're able to meet the revised date? So that's a fairly powerful capability that we have in the, just within the cumulative flow diagram, so that you can do predictive analysis. The next most important thing that I wanted to highlight is within our enterprise services planning product, the ESP product. Within the ESP product, you actually have the ability to do probabilistic predictions. So not only do you actually, if you realize life is really rarely deterministic, right? So there is never a situation, rarely going to have all your assumptions and all your variations pan out exactly the way that you anticipate, so that your end date is going to be exactly on that day. So what we do is using Monte Carlo simulation, we do a probabilistic predictions, so that I can now say that within my next 30 days, I'm going to be, there is a 53% chance that I can finish about 15 cards, and almost an 80% chance that I can finish, or a 90% chance that I can finish 70 cards, and almost just about a 25% chance that I can finish 20 cards. So if you were to go get back to your management, let's say in the situation of a scope creep, and your management were to tell you, okay guys, we need to get this 4 additional cards done, what's the probability of it's getting done in this timeline? You can now go and tell them based with a fair level of confidence, saying there's an 80% chance that I'm going to be deliver these 4 cards within my X amount of time period. So we have the ability to do both predictive as well as probabilistic based forecasting at any given point of time. The next thing that I wanted to show, and we have talked about, so let me not, just for the sake of time, I'll not repeat that, but we have already talked about percent progress tracking at the portfolio level that you can see, which is based on the real-time completion of the cards or the tasks, whichever way you want to go. Now there are several capabilities that the tool in addition has to be able to do stand-ups and retrospectives. So a couple of things that that I very regularly use is, if I am going to do my for my stand-ups, is I go to I'll pick up our development project. I'll go to filters, and we go ahead and select all the exceptions that we want to apply, and so therefore now the board is quickly able to apply and give me only the exception cards here at this point of time. Okay, so I am able to quickly filter out the exceptions, whatever be my exception criteria. If I just wanted to pick up, let's say, the block cards, I would have just seen the block cards in my view, so that I can focus on the block cards when I'm doing my stand-ups. The other key important things that we'll end up doing is one of my most favorite activities, which is called board activity. Now the board activity actually helps you analyze that which are the cards where work has happened on the system in your last 1 day. Now if you're doing, you could do 1 day or 2 days, but essentially what we are saying, what this data point immediately tells you is that there are 82 cards on which activity happened in the last 1 day, but there are 132 inactive cards on this board where work has not yet happened in the last 1 day. And you can actually go ahead and open it to understand what were all the different activities. So if you remember, we had added this test card when we were doing the portfolio, when we were actually building the card hierarchy. So you can see that the test card is showing up here because that was an activity that has happened in the last 1 day. Similarly, you can see a whole bunch of activities which have happened by different individuals on each of the different cards. You can make it a little more sophisticated and say that if even include the cards where there has been any change in any of the attributes. so don't just restrict it to cards where there has been an actual movement on the boards, but even if there is some activity that is happening on the board in terms of modification to any of the attributes, then include those cards too. So what you now see is a higher number of active cards, which makes sense, and you can now therefore be able to see, okay, in some of these cards, you'll be able to see that things actually move from one lane to another. Even attribute modifications happening. I'm not sure exactly which card example here would refer to that, but essentially there are a fair number of cards where, although the card has not moved, there has been activity on the card that has happened in terms of some of the attributes of the cards getting updated. And if you were to actually do a simple analysis of which are the cards that have not moved for, let's say, 10 days, and do a similar analysis, then you really know that these cards are aging. These cards are just pretty much dead cards, and somebody has to understand why these cards are completely stagnant for 10 days on the system. So in our system right now, if I were to look at this inventory, let this get reflected, you will see a much smaller number of cards where there has not been any activity in the last X number of days. So you can see that number is 98 now, where there has not been any activity here. And you can actually, so what you can do is, if you actually just select those cards, you can select this card here and it will show you on the board which card it is which is now being shown. The ones which are not active in the filter list would be grayed out. So we use this on a regular basis for being able to do the stand-ups. One of the most important, and you can see this is actually grouped by the day. So there are cards which are 15 days, more than 15 days, and so on and so forth. 13 days, so you can see them very nicely grouped so that you can see where this card is. So you can see these cards are where on the board at any point of time. Let me move forward to what are some of the capabilities that we have for doing retrospectives. And we have a board playback capability here. If you click on the board playback, you can actually see the board playback here, and I'll just give you a, so what you can do is you can actually go ahead and play the history of how your cards have progressed over a period of time, and you can also see that who are your constrained team members, how the cumulative flow diagram is getting built. So you can now very clearly see that in our SwiftKanban development board, there are 2 people who have the highest number of cards at any point of time. So it gives you an insight into being able to analyze that, going back since my last retrospective, which were the lanes where WIP limits, which were the columns where WIP limits were exceeded, who were the constrained people. You can then have a further discussion about what to do about that, so on and so forth. So the playback becomes the most significant capability that you can use at the time of retrospective to understand what has happened in our project since the last retrospective that we did. The other capability that we often land up using is our block card analysis. So you can actually see the different cards that have been blocked, and you can see the reasons why they have been blocked. So therefore, you can actually see in this case that there was a product defect. So you can see how many days of cycle time have you lost because of cards being blocked for different reasons. And that gives us basic Pareto data that you can now prioritize and do subsequent analysis to be able to drill down and put some corrective action in place. So that is one level of reporting that we completed. I want to move to the individual. So for an individual, we have something called as a personal board. So at any point of time, if you go ahead and click on the home button, you can actually see a list of cards which are in your name here, and so you can prioritize based on the cards which you have on your plate, and that becomes kind of your inbox to focus on what are all the different cards that are in your name at any point of time. Let me just get to the right zoom level so that you can see a more expanded view. And for the manager, if there is, if the manager is doing a fair amount of due date based tracking, we have a couple of widgets here that help him see which are the cards which are due, which are overdue, which are due this week, due in a couple of weeks, or due this month. So if you have cards which are, if you're doing a fair amount of due date based tracking, we don't do due date based tracking very actively. That's why you see everything is sitting in the overdue bucket, because we don't put any due dates there at all. But if you were to do due date based tracking, then you would be able to see what is due this week, due in 2 weeks, due in a month, and then you can try and figure out whether that's going to happen or not. Similarly, you can see a bunch of what we call as a flags board. You can see the cards which have a risk or an alert or an issue or a block for whatever reason. So you can actually go ahead and get to the bottom of the detail, that what are the risks or what are the issues that people have flagged off on these particular cards. So these two cards, these two boards help you significantly when you are actually playing the role of a manager, the due date board and the flags board. The other significant functionality that we have specifically for managers leads is what we call as a calendar view. And let me go back to my SwiftKanban development board. So to show the calendar view, I'm going to firstly reset all the filters and go to my calendar view, and I'm going to say show me all. So now what you can see is if we were to do a lot of due dates on individual cards, you would have seen them all spread over on this calendar view in terms of when those cards are due. And then you could select on those cards and actually decide what to do about those cards and whether it's going to happen or not. We do release-based planning. So since we do release-based planning, what I'm showing you here is our SwiftKanban 4.15 release, which is going to be released by the 31st which was released by the 31st of March. And what are the different cards? So you can actually see these cards in a grayed out manner. Obviously, this is let me pick up another month. Let me pick up this one as an example. So this is our current release, which is 4.16, which is supposed to get completed by the 5th of May. And now you are able to see here which are all the different cards in this release and where they are in the different lanes. So you can get a sense, therefore, that I do still have cards which are scheduled for release on May 5th, which are still in the development cycle. There are 26 cards which are completed development, but there are still a fair number of cards which are in the design lane, and some of these cards are blocked, perhaps will not make it to the release. But you get a sense that when I click on the release, what are all the cards which are part of this release, where they are scattered across your value stream, and therefore what is the level of probability that you'll be able to complete. So these were a couple of functionalities that significantly help managers being able to take up their, understand and gauge whether they're able to make up their planned dates or not. The last piece that I wanted to highlight is talk a little bit about cost of delay. The cost of delay function, if you all are familiar, this is part of our enterprise services planning product. The cost of delay function essentially stands for or helps you understand that if you are in a situation where demand far exceeds supply, so the rate at which you're getting cards coming into the system far exceeds the rate at which cards are getting done, then you need some basis to be able to understand, of course, how to prioritize, number one. but more essentially, a key question to answer is how late can I start this card? So for example, if let us say if somewhere to take one particular feature and say if this is a fixed date class of service card, so I would say that so I map it as a fixed date class of service card, where I'm saying that if it doesn't get done by July, if it gets done by July 31st, I get its full value of $1,000. If it doesn't get done by, if it's delayed, then I lose its full value. Now, if essentially that is my cost of delay function for this, then I can easily, then I can use my Monte Carlo simulation and be able to determine that what is the probability, how late I can start. So if I start this on, 1st, 30th of June, 1st of July timeline, then the potential loss of value because of this not making its end date is about $200. But if I started around 24th of July, then the potential loss of value because I did not start in time and this will get delayed is $800. So a cost of delay function helps you in demand shaping so that you can understand that based on your own distribution of cycle time, how late you're comfortable with in starting that particular card. And then you can decide if I can start this time, if I can wait till, let's say, if in this case, if you can wait till July, then very clearly you don't need to wait to take up this card in June or May, even if the card is sitting in the backlog. You can afford to wait till the month of July and therefore then take up something which is way more important and has a higher cost of delay function on an earlier timeline. So those, so this is just a brief summary about the cost of delay capability that we have within the enterprise services planning module. And with that, I would actually end our presentation here. I think we have a few minutes left for some Q&A. And before that, just to wrap up, I'm sorry, just to wrap up on our integrations story within the ecosystem. So we have SwiftSync actually helps you to integrate with over 40 plus tools, and you have some of the sample tools being listed here. You can see them. So in other words, you can actually have a complete bi-directional integration with a Jira and yet have the Kanban tool being used from SwiftKanban. So you can do any of these combinations. It's a complete bi-directional integration, fair level of sophistication in terms of rules, definition of custom field mappings. You can do all your mappings and put conditional statements. If there are failures, it has got provisions for automatic recovery. So it's a very sophisticated bi-directional real-time integration platform that you can use with SwiftKanban so that it can coexist with your ecosystem of tools at any given time. Thank you for all your time. I hope it was helpful and we could value add. If there are any further questions, please do feel free to get back to Naveen or to myself, and we will try and respond them at the earliest. As we said before, the webinar recording will be available subsequently.